coming!
So, everyone who's consumed any considerable amount of fictional media knows what I'm talking about when I bring up the concept of an edgy character. You have this brooding, gloomy dude who's unmatched with the blade, yet has the emotional maturity of a Lego stud and still manages to be the most beloved character in almost any piece of media he invades. They're the "he's literally me" characters who every terminally online gym bro between the ages of 17 and 26 seems to idolize as their pinnacle of masculinity. Jordan Peterson's target audience, if you will.
Imagine that you could be top dog or bottom dog. Imagine there's 10 strata in the lobster hierarchy. So you could be number 1, right, top lobster, number 10, bottom lobster. If you're bottom lobster, you have low serotonin levels and high octopamine levels. That's a neurochemical that human beings don't produce.
When you hear the word edgy, you typically know what people are referring to. I hate this descriptor. It sucks. Not only does it have like 5 other definitions, but even its original meaning in reference to an individual no longer correctly embodies the archetype we've socially constructed over time. Sure, there are definitely some examples of anxious, fidgety, tense characters that fans of popular media would classify under the all-encompassing Pornhub-level category of edgy, but you're much more likely to hear words like angry, depressed, cold, mysterious, dark, suicidal, cliché, annoying, cringe. Alternatively, people also commonly use the word to describe a more offensive, provocative style of humor that lies somewhere outside of what is typically thought to be socially acceptable.
Holy shit, it's Leafy!
This isn't related to the point of the video or anything, I just feel that it helps to contextualize how broadly the term edgy is used. It's a shitty word. So instead, let's talk about moody characters. As it relates to character study, and for the sake of this video, I find the term moody to be a far more accurate way to describe these guys. Given to unpredictable changes of mood, especially sudden bouts of gloominess or sullenness, giving an impression of melancholy or mystery. Sound familiar? Yeah, well, it should. These are your Ackermans, your Kanekis, your Sasuke's. As is the case with any other character trope, there are an endless number of good and bad ways to write one of these guys. I find that the moody male character tends to manifest in one of 3 ways, though there's often overlap between them. Before I say anything else, these metrics are by no means objectively determined in any way. In my subjective analysis of many such characters, I chose these categories based on the most common patterns that I individually observed. As hilarious as it would be to say, "My opinion is objectively correct! Haha, just kidding! Merp!" It's not. There's no limit to the sheer number of ways you can interpret and classify a character or a trope seen in a character, so I encourage you all to come up with your own interpretations. With that said, I have narrowed down 3 distinct archetypes of the moody male character that seem to appear most frequently in anime, particularly in shonen and seinen. The tragic hero is one that everyone should be immediately familiar with, I hope. Think Alucard from Castlevania, Levi from Attack on Titan, Aki from Chainsaw Man, Law from One Piece, or Guts from Berserk. These battle-hardened champions of the people have generally experienced some sort of great loss in their lives, and bear the burden of that loss in their lifelong commitment to a cause that has given them purpose and an existence of never-ending struggle. The tragic hero is typically characterized by emotional complexity, a hidden empathy and compassion for others, seclusion, lack of control over the situation, and self-sacrifice. They were often misguided as a child, but were shown compassion by a mentor of some kind. Perhaps the most iconic of these mentor figures is Iroh and his gradual reformation of Zuko. The cynic is a fairly common character trope across fictional media in its own right. This guy has a very pessimistic and dreary view of whatever world he lives in, so he differs from the tragic hero in that his separation from those around him stems more from a notable aimlessness and lack of purpose. Of the 3 archetypes I will talk about, the cynic has the most overlap with the other 2. Some well-known examples of the cynic in anime are L from Death Note, Spike from Cowboy Bebop, Trevor Belmont from Castlevania, and Kenny from Attack on Titan. They are characterized by emotional and physical isolation, a lower level of empathy, a perceived lack of power over their situation, indifference to life, and scattered moments of heroism that may or may not stem from genuine selflessness. Something inherent to pretty much all of these characters is an intrinsic desire to find something they lack, though this is also the source of their inner turmoil. Finally, we move on to the archetype that I have the most to say about.
I do want you to jerk off in front of us right now.
For better or for worse, these characters have gained an assload of popularity lately. The Master Manipulator is the guy you will see in the corny Sigma Ligma Sugma male edits, almost always showing a clip of said character doing something borderline psychopathic with obnoxious funk music played over it. You know all those YouTube shorts of Thomas Shelby from Peaky Blinders?
Long story short, they're going at it like super hardcore, right? Well, he ends up slipping out of her, and she slams down on him, and he hears a pop. He ended up like literally breaking his wiener.
Being calm in almost every situation comes easy for those of us that are dead inside.
As an introvert, when I try to do eye contact with anyone, I end up laughing, scared mouth closed, happy.
I've tried the first tips. Move slowly and relaxed, and unintentionally did it in front of my mother. She told me to do dishes when I was just arrived from gas station. I slowly stop at the terrace, gaze straight into her eyes, then nodding. Her reaction was, "Please don't do that again. Some people may feel intimidated and beat you later." Conclusion, the tips was definitely legit.
Anyways, some of these characters are done very well. Unfortunately, I think they're also the easiest ones to fuck up. This archetype is portrayed best when it serves as a warning to the audience as opposed to encouraging the idolization of shitty behavior. Now, to make one thing clear, I don't think that anyone who consumes media that features an irresponsibly written manipulator character is going to try to emulate that behavior. However, it is foolish to say that this does not happen. We are all, to an extent, influenced by the media we consume. An insecure young guy can easily latch onto a character like this and try to emulate their behavior. There's of course nothing wrong with having insecurities about masculinity. It's very common, especially in the case of modern young men. But it is nonetheless important to keep the possibility in mind. I don't know, maybe this shit isn't even important. What the fuck do I know? What the fuck do I know? Who am I? 21-year-old? Almost jobless? Whereas the tragic hero is typically inclined towards doing good, and the cynic is generally more neutral. A key trait of these master manipulator types is a proclivity for self-serving behavior. He's characterized by a lack of empathy, dishonesty, cruelty, desire for control over others, and an overarching need for power. Interestingly, like the cynic, a lot of master manipulators are motivated by the same desire to find something they do not have, though in the event of this character, their means of finding this thing are more often than not cruel or involve taking advantage of other people. Their desires also have a grandiosity to them that is not seen in the cynic. In other words, they're Machiavellian. Think Griffith from Berserk, Light from Death Note, Johann Liebert from Monster, Lelouch from Code Geass, Eren Yeager from Attack on Titan, Vicious from Cowboy Bebop, and... Now, as you may have noticed, a lot of the characters I've listed as examples of all three archetypes in action are conflicting forces in their respective pieces of media. As such, I think it is very important to look into the relationships between some of these characters to better understand how the archetypes intermingle with one another. The most common of these protagonist-antagonist duos in anime is that of the tragic hero and the master manipulator. This is where you find the classic good versus evil dynamic that exists pretty much anywhere you look. A personal favorite of mine, though, is the iconic dynamic between Guts and Griffith, and this one is so fascinating to me for so many reasons. Guts is of course the tragic hero in this case, having started out as a young man who has been totally abandoned and betrayed by everyone he meets. I mean, he was born from the hanging corpse of his mom, for fuck's sake, like, holy shit. Griffith, though, is the first truly empathetic presence in his life. Remember how I mentioned the mentor-student dynamic that is pretty much universal across the tragic hero archetype? Well, Griffith is quite definitively Guts' mentor in the beginning of the manga/anime. Griffith brings him into the band of the Falcon, and for the first time in his life, Guts is given a real family to fight alongside. If you know anything at all about Berserk, though, you know how this ends. Griffith goes way off the deep end after Guts leaves the group and eventually ends up as the main antagonist of the series, who goes on to commit some pretty unspeakably horrific acts, all in an effort to make Guts suffer for abandoning him. Another exceptional dynamic is the one between Light and L in Death Note. Now, it should be noted that I am a huge Death Note glazer, okay? This anime could personally tear off both of my arms and I would tell it to take my legs next. If you've watched Death Note and aren't totally brain dead, you know where I'm coming from. Every episode of this shit is orgasmic. The true magic of this anime is the constant back and forth metaphorical chess game between Light Yagami and his sworn nemesis L. From the get-go, the near achromatism of Death Note's color choices creates an atmosphere of almost oppressive gloom and melancholy. This is the perfect environment for Light and L to inhabit, as both of them are shown to be nihilistic and dreary by nature. In this sense, both are exemplary representatives of the cynic archetype. Interestingly, though, they divert from each other by displaying contradictory traits of all three of the aforementioned archetypes that I've laid out, though some more than others in both cases. Light is introduced as one of Japan's best and brightest students, and when he first picks up the Death Note, he is averse to using it. This changes pretty quickly, though, and throughout the series he displays a progressively diminishing humanity as he pursues a future of righteousness through godhood. Light possesses the brilliance, cruelty, desire for power, and boundless ambitions of the archetypical master manipulator. While Light's cynicism comes into play in his dull, hopeless view of life and other people, L falls more neatly in line with the cynic archetype, as opposed to Light, who's driven by an overarching ambition to pursue the purpose he lacks. The ambition that L exhibits is devoid of such grandiosity, and is driven almost solely by an internal desire to pursue truth. They are both championing some personalized idea of justice, but L in particular seems to derive a significant amount of purpose from his rivalry with Light. Though L does exhibit some traits of the master manipulator in his complex plans and deceptions, it would be inaccurate to label him as such when he does not embody the archetype remotely as well as Light does. Ultimately, in the events leading up to the moment when L is defeated by Light, we see a more self-sacrificing and even emotional side to him that shows a genuine concern for his team and his mission. He shows many of the key traits of a tragic hero in his final moments: compassion, emotional complexity, and a complete loss of control over his situation. What a damn good duo, you know what I'm saying? That shit is, oh, god damn. Okay, so, anyways, enough talking about well-written characters. This guy sucks. The anime sucks. The entire concept behind the plot is so unbelievably absurd, but it's presented as if we should be taking it seriously. And yet, I still catch myself enjoying this garbage sometimes. If you aren't aware, the whole idea behind Classroom of the Elite is that there is this super high-tier preparatory school with expectations so insane and students so cutthroat and genuinely evil you would think the entire school was built for politicians in training. Which it was. Ayana Koji Kiyotaka is the protagonist of this social slaughterfest, and he is meant to be a person of unmatched intelligence and strategic ability. He resorts to manipulating everyone he speaks to in order to reach his ultimate goal of elevating his class to the top of the school's ranks. So the problem here is his manipulation. Throughout the series, he does some pretty heinous shit that is continuously glorified in the way it's written. At one point, he sticks a group of bullies on an insecure girl. And listen, this girl has been treated horribly through her whole life. She has been through the ringer. She's had it tough, okay? But he sticks this group of bullies on her in order to totally break her down emotionally so she would develop a complete reliance on his acknowledgement of her. He watches from afar as this poor girl gets the shit kicked out of her by a squad of mean girls, only to swoop in right after the damage is done to take immediate advantage of her severe vulnerability in that moment. This should go without saying, but holy shit, this is an evil thing to do. He's often depicted as a neutral party, and he does act that way a lot of the time, but he's an unmistakably evil person who commits the occasional good act solely for his own personal gain. It's pretty clear as well that the author of the light novel is a pretty fucking weird guy himself. I haven't really read much because it honestly is not nearly as good as some people seem to think it is, but within the first few pages, Ayana Koji is delivering a deep and intellectual analysis about the female lead's honkers. Not too big, not too small, the perfect size, or something wild along those lines. Regardless, the way this character acts should not be glorified. There's so many Reddit threads and YouTube videos of younger guys talking about how to become like Ayana Koji. Like, dude, shut up! How is this motherfucker idolized by people? Granted, he does have some cool moments that I unfortunately cannot claim I didn't enjoy watching, but never in my life would I look up to someone like this. You can be smart without constantly edging people at your whim and gooning them away when they no longer serve some sort of fucked up use to you. I swear, there's this weird obsession in anime for this mysterious protagonist to hide everything about themselves. It's a little cringe. I mean, it's a little cringe. Like, come on, it's kind of overplayed. It's a little fucking cringe. So there you have it. That's the good, the bad, and everything in between about the Moody Male anime character. There are so many examples I didn't fully cover, but going over every single one that comes to mind would extend the length of the video far beyond what I'm willing to commit towards this idea. Let me reiterate one more time that this was a subjective analysis based on some patterns I've seen in the anime I've consumed, so feel free to disagree if you want. I don't really care. Okay, bye.